Alrighty. Well, hello. How we doing, sir?
Well, I'm here, so that's the most that can be helped for at the moment.
Well, I'll take that.
We are barely holding it together here, but still all five alive in the Haig household. So
It is. It is. Is everybody doing okay? You're not having any issues or anything, are you?
I mean, there's certainly a health thing going on here. None of us are well. Everyone else in the family is probably already back on the upswing, whereas I was maybe the last to contract here, so I'm still down in this part of the valley right there. But well enough to come on here and celebrate some good times.
Right. So the original plan was you were going to drop in and we were going to do this from here, but you know, we could have even socially distanced and made it happen, but we decided not to do that given your current state.
Yeah, really for the best.
All right. One thing, are you getting an echo from me?
No, I hear you. Single clear, single,
Every single word, you're good? All right.
and only one
And only
of every
once.
single one.
Well, that's what's important. I just want to make sure that we're not getting an echo because I'm getting a slight one, but I switched microphones. Or yeah, so you
Gotcha.
know, now that I can do whatever I want with the studio.
Now you don't have to cater to my needs. That's the big
Right.
change.
So let's see. Do we have our little lower thirds? We'll use that tonight
Hey
in case you
there.
didn't know who you are. There you go. And
In case John wanted to repay the favor and claim not to know who I was.
well,
Hello, John of the Incorrigible Party.
yes. Hello, John. How you doing? How you doing? We also looks like we have some Glenn in the room.
Cheers to Glenn.
All right. So I think last time we did the show, we had enough talk about our reasons for doing it and why, and all that. So I don't think we need to rehash that. I, you know, if anybody wants the inside scoop, I'll be happy to talk with you offline. But today is not about that. Today we're just going to sit here and kind of go through the last couple years of the show. If people pop in and say hi, awesome. We're just gonna recap the good times. How does that sound?
Sounds delightful. Several guests already here to celebrate with us.
Right, right. Two people who have been actually on the show are in chat.
Yeah, that's what I
Unfortunately,
mean by
that
guests.
kind of was my audience the whole time. Was if you're on the show, you're a part of my audience. So kind of did that.
You watched at least that episode.
Right. So give you give you a little laydown of what's going on here. I have my setup, I have my table, and I have the monitor. I have the giant TV is now right here in front of me with the camera smack in the middle. So where you guys see chat, I see a big camera. So, but I couldn't. I have to use the meeple wall. I kind of feel I need to use that. And Dan looks like he's ready to start receiving free games and interviewing them any minute.
Because this collection looks very dated. There have been no recent free games to.
But everything is old is new again, and Kalis is coming back around. So you're all
There
right.
you go. See? That's the policy of my collection is that eventually there'll be a grand remaster of these. Tigress got one not long ago. If I just hold on to these antiques long enough, they'll be relevant.
Right. All right. Hey, did my social not work? Oh, that's not cool. We'll have to fix that. You know what? Chat's in the middle. I think we can just talk about chat. I'm not gonna mess with it
Yeah,
too
you don't need
much.
to pop them up. Everyone can see everything.
Exactly. And I got the chat down here. Also, you know what? I don't want to be fussing with it. I can actually read it up there. Tim Vernig's in the house. new board order. Actually played a game of Wingspan with him last night. So that was
Oh, very cool.
cheers, cheers.
Some good taste with the Kalis love.
Yeah. Oh, it's a classic. You can't go wrong. Can't go wrong. So Dan, what do you have any thoughts on what you'd like to do today? Any way you'd like to approach this? I have an idea. Do you have anything special you want to do?
Well, I'm along for the ride. I defer to your idea.
Oh well, then that I'll tell you how many times that ends in tears and heartache for everybody. Just saying. There's just usually a lot of disappointment. So what I kind of thought was, what we could do is just kind of go through and maybe talk about maybe each of the guests that we've had, and then we can kind of maybe, if we have a highlight or something, I mean, we can skip over Glenn's, but if we have something good to say in any event, you know what they say: if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it. So there's that.
I'll just feign memory problems and all the.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So we begin almost where we end, and it's kind of apropos. Now, Dan, when did you actually come on the show? Do you remember what episode or who the first guest was?
Man, Chris Kirkman was one of the first, but I don't think literally the first.
Okay. I think you're right, because I think
I was hoping actually that was a "this is your life" kind of deal, and you were gonna follow with the correct answer because to fill in that gap. But
all right, so
those early days are a little bit of a blur.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So I think you came in probably around 13 or 14, because there was a brief period there where I did them by myself, and I literally had a foot pedal stomp box to try and keep the switching going. I had a 3-button.
You're doing your guitar effects to.
It was kind of frightening.
Pretty impressive.
So we'll kind of run through, because I know you did watch them, so we can kind of at least talk about them a little bit. So we had Roy Canada was our first guest out of the gate, and one of the last ones. He was episode 1 this season. So he was a lot of fun. We did a cool game with him back when I had all this time, although I had a lot less than I have now. So go figure how that works. But we actually sent him these Amazon packages out of nowhere, and we just had to lie and figure it out. It was absolutely hysterical. It was ridiculous.
There were some choice items Gary had managed to find in the dark corners of Amazon where. Because Roy had no idea. He didn't order these things. These were things that Gary just randomly plucked. Like, oh, here's a DVD for $3, and slipped that out of the box.
Exactly. And he had a $5 budget. I'll also let you know. But that was a lot of fun. And Roy, what the first 3 to 4 guests, actually, they all said yes to the show when the show hadn't even been birthed yet. Like we're still showing at this point when they booked on the show. So it was pretty incredible, like that they did that. And, huge props and thanks to everybody.
Well, that was the beginning of one of the tales of everything you've done then and since in this space, which is that the incredible amount of support you got from other people who are also doing their own cool videos and podcasts.
Right.
The other creative folk out there were always had your back, encouraging you before you started that this is a thing you had to do, and then right there to hop on with you and be a guest.
Right. No, it's absolutely true. And I don't know. It was a lot of fun, and let me tell you, a lot of technical challenges right up front, because the way we did things with Gary being remote and me being here, it meant for a lot of extra issues that you didn't really get when you were here. You saw some, but it was nothing like some of the stuff we had. Then we had Flip Flory was on. That was fun. Good time, just kind of, learning about the clown business and clowning around some, as it were. We also had Crystal, where we did the Millionaire Show with the Star Trek trivia. Vividly remember that. That was a blast to try. And it was Gary's like, I can do a trivia thing, and we did, and it was fun. But it was also once we realized that it's fun to play those things, but I think the game part needed to be interactive a little bit more. Then, of course, Chaz Marler made his first appearance of 2. He was a lot of fun, too. Weird Al Yankovic. Oh, that man loves some Weird Al. And then Bruce Vogue. Bruce, do you remember Bruce?
Yeah.
Yep. That was Bruce is one of those people.
Now I did an episode with Bruce, but that's too early. So did he come back on, or was that a one-off event we did? I don't remember.
That might have been a one-off event, maybe, because he was on for the Wits and Wagers when we did that. So,
yeah.
But I tell you what, he is one of those people who is just super gregarious, outgoing, and a ton of fun. He was a complete blast. Loved him to death. And I can't say enough things. If you need a community manager, you could do a lot worse. Just saying.
Heck yeah.
So we got a couple comments. Let's take a moment and just kind of read through. So let's see. Like Tim says, you don't know what you got till it's gone. I tell you. Thanks, Tim. I don't know.
Cheers, Tim.
Everybody who will feel that way is probably here with us tonight. So that's all that matters. And then Tony, I'm going to be talking to Tony Saturday night. But, you know. But thanks for stopping by, my friend. Always fun. I tell you what, that is probably one of the coolest things is, you know, everybody who is in chat right at this moment, who's spoken in chat right at this moment, I consider a friend. I really do. Like there's reason right there to kind of rejoice in the show, because I wouldn't have that if, you know, we didn't have the show.
There's
So
no
yeah,
family.
except John, he's, you know, yeah. He comes with Emily. That's the problem. You kind of get one, you have to get the other. So it's fair enough. So it's a genuine truth and benefit of doing the show is just making a lot of cool friends and knowing that when I start going to cons again, when we all start going to cons again, I'll have friends there because, you know, there's that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so moving on. I'm kind of hustling through here a little bit. I don't want to, but you know, frankly, you know, Dan wasn't here. You know, he watched a lot of my back catalog when he came on board, but he didn't really, you know, it's a little different when you live through it. Let me tell you, especially.
I had to steal Gary's best game ideas.
Yeah, no, you absolutely should. Let's see. Then we had Alan Girding. He came on twice. And he did our anniversary show. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that was a really cool thing.
Alan this was the first interview I did with somebody I had not met at all. I didn't even know him. I barely played Two Rooms and a Boom. So like, but then now it's like he's absolutely somebody I consider a friend and who I search for at shows and things because he's so awesome. He's approachable. If you need a good sounding board, he's your guy. Love him to death.
Yeah, that was he brought a real like in studio kind of energy to that. You know, this was still the show's fully remote for that first episode because even Gary's remote, but like you could forget that Alan wasn't present when you were watching that one because it felt like, you know, someone who was right there on set giving you all that juice.
Right. And he just wants to pour so much energy into making you succeed. He really does. And he was, you know, that was Gary's call. He says, "Oh, you should get Alan on." And I'm like, "Okay, who?" And then the funnier part of that was that we actually, before the show, recorded a podcast for him. So we had to do that, and he interviewed me. So at least we got to know each other, and then we did our show. So it was definitely pretty interesting. But that also helped a lot. It got me over that kind of that hump of I don't need to know everybody, and getting to know somebody's kind of awesome. So
Absolutely.
definitely, Dave Luza called in from Germany. That was a fun one. Tease him anytime you guys see him. Tease him about Kingdom Builder. It's his favorite game of all time, and is always willing to play it. I do believe. Um, let's see. We have some more comments. We'll take a quick pause. So Tim's giving you virtual hugs. Bill and Elena say hi. I believe they're sitting at home under quarantine right now, if I'm not mistaken. So hang in there, guys. Dan feels your pain. Feels your pain. But unfortunately, Dan has remote work access. So
Yeah, my routine is uninterrupted. Just
yeah, that's got to be very strange, especially when somebody is like used to working X, and then now all of a sudden they're working either a ton more, and they're just watching a lot of people not at all. I think it's very interesting to see that kind of this dichotomy that's happening, and I feel bad for those people, and that has to stress you out. But oof. All right,
absolutely.
moving on. Apparently, Emily is not so nice behind closed doors. I think John's trying to throw a little shade there, but then we had Christina Rouse. That was fun. That was probably one of the funnest interviews where we actually we were going to sing, but I begged off the singing. That was no one needs that. So like for the impressions game, she sang. I did not.
As I say, there was singing, but
yeah, it was not on this part. No. Unless there's like a shower or a car involved, it ain't happening. But that was a lot of fun. And then of course Kevin Berkey was up next. That was a good time getting to know Berkey and talking about food, and that was one of the first times I realized we could go an entire show without even talking about a game practically, and we just spent the entire time talking about food, and that was a blast.
Yeah, and there's one created a lifetime relationship.
Absolutely, most definitely a friend on that side. Cool. And then let's round off the 10 with Mr. Jamie Stegmeyer. That was quite the catch. That was. Then I realized, that he's very open to doing new shows, but he's also one of the. He's a very difficult guy to interview. He's done it a few times, so he's a little tricky. So Never Bored Gaming apparently has been to Christina Rob's home and gamed, and he still games, so that has to say something. I don't know.
He survived the routing.
Yeah. He survived the Rob, the attack of Rob. So, so we're closing up on you, Dan, here. So real quick, we'll just run through a couple more because then we're going to be on top with Dan, and then we'll get back to normal. At this point, I believe Chris Michaud, we did the show with him. That was a lot of fun. Former host of the Flip the Table. That was a blast, and the also a very good time. And we broke him. He had to come out of retirement to do the show, which was pretty cool. So I think that was awesome. And then Ben Maddox. I vividly remember doing Ben because that was like early in the morning on a Saturday because he's in Germany as well. And oh my goodness. And he looked all orange, and he made all these Trump jokes I had to cut out. So it was I love Ben, and he's a trip. You want to, if you're missing a hole in your interview life and you need to fill that, 5 Games for Doomsday is a great show. Absolutely. Alex Goldsmith. Now I think we're getting close to when you showed up. I believe I did a few of these solo. I did 3 solo back when we used to do 1 a week, which was a little insane. We stopped that quickly after. That was a little too... No. That was just absolutely nuts. But this
I
was
mean,
right when Alex got back from his whirlwind trip around the world. So very interesting. Then we did Jay Peak. He's half handicapped. Well, he is, and he is. So he was an interesting fellow to talk to, and he first one to give me a present for the show actually, which I thought was kind of cool. And then Chris Kirkman. So I think we're caught up, Dan. I think you're right. I
yeah,
think Chris was the first one you
Chris
did.
must have been at least the first one to air.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was back when we used to record double shots too. So
Oh yeah.
those were two recordings, like 7:30 and 9 p.m. kind of.
Yeah, we did that a lot. So yeah, back at the beginning of the show, we would do that. We would sorry, I just lost my place on my list. Yeah, we would actually do 2 recordings in one night, and it was insane because you had to completely go do the show, set up for the game, do the game, unset, reset for the show, do the next show, do the game. Like it was a lot, but it was the only way we could do, get anywhere near the 1 show a week. That was the initial goal, but I think it really, really kind of made things tough. So Dan, let's go back. Let's teleport back in time to those fateful days leading up to having you come on the show. What was some of the stuff that made you want to actually say, yeah, I'll commit to doing this for however long?
So I have always been a big fan of interview podcasts.
Okay.
Probably the big one would be WTF with Mark Maron.
Oh,
I
good call.
listened to those from I don't know, like early double digits, somewhere in the 15 range, episode 1501. I listened to those, and those were remarkable conversations. Both, even when there was someone he already knew, the format let him have a conversation with them that almost would never happen. He might know someone for 10 years and never have that sort of probing conversation. He'd learn things about them, and their relationship would come way deeper. And it's what you do on here. And the chance to, as soon as I saw some of them, and it was like, wow, listening to those conversations happen, and hey, I could be in the room for that too, and I could be a fly on the wall, an occasional participant, and it's really sounded like an amazing opportunity right from the jump. And then once we started doing the thing, well, you asked the question of what made me interested, and that's the answer to it. That's the chance to be part of those kind of insightful and personal conversations that you do on here was a rare opportunity.
Thank you. And that was always what I strove to do. I think that was always important. I have I have a I don't, regret is probably an overstatement, but if I have one, it was that I asked Dan who he wanted to get on, and he said Ignacy, and I actually got agreement from Ignacy to do it, but then it just never happened, and I'm kind of like bummed that we didn't get to cap that and give you one of the people you always wanted to interview on the show, because I mean, I'm sure he would, and I'm sure it would be a lot of fun at the same time. So real quick, emergency break here. Let's see. Yeah, David has asked if he physically has to pour one out for the show, and no, David, that is alcohol abuse.
So
So
entirely recommended. Just make sure you're properly positioned when you do.
right
That's the
there,
key to the pouring
yeah, you
out.
can
That's
pour it
the
in your mouth hole. Yeah, I like that. I like that. Well done. Well done. All right. So let's move on. Um, all right. So there are a couple questions. So let's do a couple
yeah.
of these because I think they're fun. So, what made your Jamie interview tick? It was probably one of the hardest I ever did. I'd say I don't think it was my best because he's just kind of reverses the interview a lot when you talk to him. So it made it a little difficult to try and, like, I didn't know how to kind of get around that and kind of keep things on. But ultimately, I think it was great. I really loved it, but it was one of the few, like, I was sweating when we were done, which was pretty awesome. um, Dan, what was the worst and best thing you drank on the show?
I'm pretty sure Glenn convinced us to try Evan Williams White at some point. That might have been a contender for worst.
Mm.
A ton of wonderful beers and bourbons on the show. You know, real partial to some of the New England IPAs we had on there. We did Sip of Sunshine along the way. We did Second Fiddle. Um, Fairly recently brought a can of Heady Topper on for us to split. Those are all real high on that list.
Yeah. So I have two. The worst was I believe it was the Sweetwater 420.
I forgot that.
Not my favorite. That was kind of, I had to work through that one.
See,
That
we
was
don't have television technology, by the way, so that the audience might not appreciate that. What they were going for there was that for that beer to have a real dank odor to it, a very strong pot scent, and they nailed it.
they did.
Technology has come so far that science can accomplish that, and that was
Not necessarily my cup of beer.
not for Chris.
And favorites, I kind of say two. You Hetty showed up once, but actually recently for the Roy show, you brought some Focal Banger, which I actually like better than Hetty Topper, and that was absolutely delicious. And then of course the one that just takes the cake, I have to say, was when and we'll get up to him soon. I think was when Chris from the Secret Cabal came on, and he brought a bottle of Lagavulin 16. So that was my favorite drink for quite a while until I killed it. It's dead. It's buried somewhere. You won't find the body. All right, so let's get moving on here. So Chris Kirkman, your first show, what was that? What was that like, Dan? Because like for those of you who don't know, legit, this is my basement. This is the set. Dan is when he's here, not social distancing. He's like literally right over at the bar I have, and he's standing behind my actual bar. And so he came down and we set him up. So what was kind of that first? And I think back then we actually had Reuven helping us out, so he was kind of doing
Yep.
some of the monkey buttons for a while.
Yeah, we had a producer for a long time before I started having to press the buttons. Well, not a long time. We had a producer for a handful of episodes. I think would be a better way to put
Well, in podcast years, that could be forever.
it. But yeah, a ton of nervousness. I think even a year and a half on or whatever like that, I don't think I've still become totally comfortable behind the camera. So every time it was my turn to say something, it was, who knew where my volume level would be at. So and I don't know that I've shaken that to this day, but but still it was very quickly sucked into that conversation. Right from that first episode, the magic I was talking about happened in the sense that um, the conversation went in cool places, and I was right here in the room while it was happening, and being able to fire stuff at Chris, and it was just wonderful to be part of that energy and to have that happen. So I was sold on what we were doing as soon as we did it.
And you hopped right in, and it was, it took us a little while to kind of get our rhythm. We had to figure out our intro and how we worked you in, and then kind of to give you that moment, because it was definitely a little awkward at first trying to figure out how to make all that work. But once we did and we got through it, I love it. That's why the format sticks. And I think the other thing to kind of point out is what you kind of mentioned is, and maybe it's a bad thing, I don't know, but I have a very hard time cutting things. And so usually the show you see is the show we recorded. There is hardly ever any cuts or modifications made to it. Like literally, like I can probably remember what I've cut out like once or twice. Like I don't do it. But I don't know if that's bad self editing or because I just think everything's awesome. All right, moving on.
Bill is correct, by the way. The Lagavulin is what Ron Swanson drinks.
Oh, is
What
it?
Nick Offerman legitimately drinks, by the way. That's a little autobiography slipping through the show, as far as I know.
I haven't listened to his autobiography in a while, but I do have it on Audible, so it's very entertaining. All right. David Phillip asks, is it a question that Gary and Pope are both four-letter words? No, because the one I would use would be 6 and 6. But that's you figure that one out. Just kidding. So then we had Chris Renshaw on. Did a lot of RPG work, boards and swords. Very prolific. I think he spends more time in front of the camera than behind it, to be honest with you. And Eric Buscemi. Now that was an interesting one because again, didn't know him. Learned on screen that his cousin was actually, Steve Buscemi. Steve, yeah, Con Air, Steve Buscemi, yeah.
Of all the credentials, Con Air. Yeah.
Con Air. That's where it goes. Well, I mean, it could be Mr. Pink. I could go with that.
Slightly more iconic, in my opinion.
Marginally. But come on, that scene in Con Air where he's with the little girl by the swimming pool playing with a doll, and you're just like, put the bunny back in the box. That's... Hey Dan, you know what we have not done? We have not talked about what we're drinking tonight. We just dove right in.
Yeah, it's true.
So a quick moment for station identification, and I get to ask you what you're drinking tonight.
Sure thing. Taking advantage of the fact that I'm pouring just for myself here to have a sour, so I'm doing Victory's Sour Monkey.
Okay.
Which is my many of my favorite beers are sours, and Sour Monkey. I don't know if there's anything I've had as much of since Victory introduced it. That is probably every other beer I've had in the last 2 years has been a Sour Monkey.
You know what? So Victory's taken to calling this almost a whole line of their beer Monkey now. And I don't agree with it 100%. Like I don't like the Mango Monkey or there's a couple.
Twisted Monkey's a bit of a cheat.
Yeah. I just actually had like 3 Goldens the other night because I got a variety pack. And yeah, that's just really good. And this sour, I'm not a sour guy, but that one I like.
Okay.
Because it's not so Berliner Weiss super tart over the top, boom. It's nice. I don't. Yeah, it's a nice kind of middle ground for me. We have a local brewery, Round Guys, that's near here, and they specialize in the tarts and the sours, and that's kind of actually where I learned that it's not really my thing.
Gotcha.
But fair enough.
And then you, what are you working on?
Drinking? So I actually have a Manhattan at the moment. I just have some. I think I put some Eagle Rare in here, and I just made a quick Manhattan, and it was just easier to just kind of make a shaker full, and then
Nice.
I can pour it out as I need it. It's going to be a long night. It's going to be tears. It's going to be sad. All right.
Very nice.
Let's move along here. So, let's see. David Phillip asked, who did you really want to have on the show that you could never quite nail down? Well, one I've already mentioned, and that's definitely getting Ignacy on. Would have been cool. And to be honest with you, as much as I like to give crap, Rado or Tom Vassell, I think I would probably like to have. Just because I think Tom and I actually talk at every convention and usually lasts a while. So, because, we're just 2 tall guys. So we talk. But I think actually they would have been fun interviews. So, all right. So speaking of fun interviews, Probably one of the most interesting ones you and I had was Pep McDonald. So Pep also had the distinction of being on the show before he was on the show because he did our fiasco episode,
Yeah.
which he was amazing at, and that was so much fun. And you know what? There's something I need to do in the next week or two. I need to get another fiasco together. Um,
Ooh,
so, and guess what? They upgraded my software. I can take 4 callers now. We can do a fiasco.
so much easier.
So much easier. You have no ideas. The only people who will really appreciate that is the incorrigible party. Like, now you do it? All right, so moving on. So Pep was fun. He was hysterical, and like the lay of the land when we showed up, like he showed up and he's got these turtles laying around on his all around on his tables, and I'm like, what is going on here? That was awesome. And then he decided that your game just wasn't enough, Dan, and he had to play again. So
Well, and so you've told the anecdote before of him after we were done recording and had shut off the button and the red light was off on the camera that he sprang game on us. But actually, that was I think a few minutes into the conversation. That was one where I feel like if I had not had to go home, we could have talked to Pep all night. But
yeah,
into the wee hours, that conversation was easy and comfortable, and I had to actually make a point at some point to say, all right, okay, I need to get up for work tomorrow.
yeah, because Dan does have to drive about 45 minutes home when he's here. I mean, it doesn't take him that long to get here from work, but it does take him a while to get home. So,
Yeah.
Dave Phillips actually asked if we never had the brothers Murph on. I had so many conversations with Nick and Mike. Love those guys. They're a blast. They are busy and very hard to nail down. And literally, I swear to God, they contacted me the day after we said that we were not going to do the show to schedule it. They're like, hey, when we get back from
Wow.
England, we want to do the show. And I'm like, going to be a problem with that. So I love the Murphs. We always have a blast whenever they come into town. I try to show them around and have a good time. So then we had next up was Netter's Plays. We had some had fun. Had the bird on. Remember that? That was pretty funny. Enjoyable. And then TC Petty. Wow, interesting. That
Was
was
Netter's Plays when we first did the Disney? Did we do Disney code names for that one?
no, that was with Ambi.
I'm confusing it. Okay, I'm sorry. Feel
Yep.
bad for
Then we had TC Petty, where you brought out Medium, actually, and then him and I did Medium, and just realized that no, we don't see the same way at
that.
all.
You do not have a second connection, but
We had
yeah,
we
but
had that great one with Alien though. That was
that was a blast. Yes,
so.
you get those moments.
Gil asked if I remembered how I met Pep. Yes, I do vividly, because it was actually right in front of the capstone booth at Gen Con 50. And actually, before that, I saw him at the. I sound like I'm name dropping and stuff, but I'm really not. I was there. The Secret Cabal meetup, he was there, and it kind of said, like, oh, hey, we did our little hi, love what you do, you're awesome, thank you. And then he was going to a costume ball. And then said we should play a game together. So the next day, he's like, I'm on my way out because it was Sunday. And I'm like, well, we didn't get to play our game together. So he made us play rock, paper, scissors right there so we could say that we played a game together. And we did. And it was amazing. And I believe I lost, which is my style.
Setting a trend.
There's definitely a trend. And then Scott King. Scott King came on the show, and I like to do some research on people who come on the show. Like I like to putt around and see what they've done and things like that. And I knew that like Scott had done like the photography, and that was kind of the angle I went in with. But if you watch the show, you'll learn that I didn't know as much about Scott as I thought I did, because I didn't. Then I come to find out like he's an author. He's well sold author at that, and the photography thing is really just a side gig. So I kind of came at that interview from a completely different angle than it went out because it did kind of went somewhere very interesting. And love Scott to death, and I hope he's feeling better. He actually caught this thing, so hopefully, and got diagnosed. So I hope he's doing well. He took a walk today
Now,
and things.
how often would you say that is the pattern? I know there are times where you have a pretty good sense of what your act one and act two will be and what you'll be covering. How many times is it like, okay, this was a new one, and we're just going to follow this thread as far as it takes us, and it's a brand new vision for you too.
I think it's really hard because I think you need to give yourself those moments, right? And if you totally Larry King it, where you just have a list and you just go, I think you miss the opportunity to pull on that thread. And a good interviewer, I think, knows how to do that, where you can actually get in there and start saying, "Oh, this is kind of interesting." Like Chaz Marler was the first time it really happened when I knew he liked Weird Al, but if you go watch that interview, he asked them to officiate his wedding, or no, come to the wedding. So it just kind of shows you that, like, I wouldn't have got that if I just kind of like let it go. Oh, you like Weird Al, But if I kind of pulled on it a little bit, we got a great story out of it. And one of my top moments, I think, in the show was when he went and told that whole story. That was a blast. So, yeah, I usually have a general scope for what I want to do in each half, but really, I like to see where it goes. I think that's key. I think you nailed it on the head. I think you know that more than anybody else. You see my notes or lack thereof. So,
Sometimes
oh,
I don't know if you've got something in the back. Dave Phillips has figured out a reason behind us shuttering the doors here. Yeah, the big, to do, the blow up over Canadian Dan.
no, Canadian Dan is due to the fact that Dan has a wife, and a couple kids, or three kids actually. So he is a very busy man with a real job, quote unquote. So he we're at the family's leisure that he is here with us. So I make no bones about that. So whenever I would book things, there were many times where I'd be going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Finally, get a booking in, and Dan goes, "Yeah, I'm not around." And so did it. Canadian Dan had to be born, and Canadian Dan only lived for one episode because that was way too much work for what it was worth.
Astute fans of the show will be able to trace various extremely cool innovations and be able to figure out which ones of those were ultimately just too much work to maintain by their longevity or lack thereof.
I think you saw that in the first episode because we never shipped anything to anybody else. I did that a lot initially, right? Like I sent Chaz an envelope with cards for the game that we were going to play. But, things were a lot more planned, and we went months out. It wasn't until I actually got stood up by one guest. There's one person who never showed up. We sat here and just kind of waited and waited and texted and waited, and then they never showed up. And it was eye-opening because Gary left shortly after that. But I don't know if that had anything to do with it or not, but it happened. But it was, yeah, it kind of slowed down and said, like, hey, we need to scale back how far out we're scheduling because people are forgetting. So, we started to go down to a 2-week rotation, and then that never let time. And then, of course, I think I instantly gave the games to Dan. I'm like, this is all you, because it's a lot of work, and yeah. So enough of that. Beach Vacation Dan. David Phillips remembers you on Beach Vacation with your hat in the dark and the sun going down. Sun's going down, big
Yeah,
fella.
say, lighting was okay at the very beginning of that, and quickly
Got very dark. Things are dark in the Jersey Shore. So, I think if Dan really caused the rift, David, I think I'd be doing the show with him. Just saying. But, no.
I would have been succeeded by Canadian Dan.
Yeah, exactly. And then the worst part was like Dan went out because he had work stuff, and I'm like, well, I couldn't rebook whoever it was. It was a big one. So I said, no, we'll leave it. I'll do it without you. And we've done it once, I think, where we added Dan in after the fact and then kind of ran the show, and it's a little awkward. Doesn't really work so well. So I don't like doing fake stuff like that. So we didn't do that. I like doing fake people altogether, apparently, but not adding you in post, which was not a lot of fun. So I didn't bother doing that anymore. And then, of course, the week after that, you got sick. So you were out like back to back, and everybody said, "Oh, Dan's leaving the show."
Chris started fearing every text I would send.
Like, yeah, an hour before, "Hey, buddy." I'm like, God damn it. No.
Yeah.
Let's see. Then we had Isaac Vega. That was pretty interesting. That was a cool one. Yeah, who's no longer with Plaid Hat. Plaid Hat separated from Asmodee, and Kobe Dow bought it back, and then Isaac left at that point. So I don't know if Kobe had to bring it back and squish it down to make it a little more manageable, and then who knows? It's all speculation. And both those guys have too much class that you ever comment on it, so we'll never know. Maybe if you listen to their podcast. So, but that was really cool talking to him. A lot of fun. We talked a lot, I believe, about like inclusive gaming and things. That was a pretty interesting chat.
Yeah, it was a great conversation.
Yeah, Patrick Kelly. Oh goodness, the former Blue Peg, Patrick Kelly. My goodness, that man had more jobs than it was insane. Like that was an intense interview because he was all over the map, and he's a talker. That was a lot of fun. Cool. And wow, man, we did a lot of episodes in year one. Good gracious.
Yeah, back when it was every week, man.
Well, so I'm looking. We're only up to we're getting into September of year one, and this is episode 26. Like we did that in a year last year.
Yep.
Now I don't know if that actually helped or hurt, but it was definitely better on the quality side, both for life and things like that. So, all right. So apparently, Dan, you're going to have a spin-off show where you're the masked singer and you get to guess who's singing, and it's going to be you. So unfortunately, you're going to have to learn how to sing in 8-bit.
Yeah, that's entirely done. That's entirely done to help boost how you feel about the show by achieving vastly worse viewership numbers with that their effort.
Oh, man, there are a lot of ideas. I would say the other thing that was always way more work than I ever expected was the fake commercials and things. Like my intention with those was I'm gonna put fake commercials in and then maybe someday get real ones. I thought that would be the gig. The advertisers were beating down the door. But, man, they
you
took
got
a
some
while.
gems out of that. That's some very cool stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a lot of fun. I really want to put out my the incubator. I think now is the time to strike. I think
I was going to say that could go viral in 2020. That
Pardon the pun. Oy, sorry. Hey, you started it. Let's see. Then we had Anthony Fryer on. Again, somebody
Who's he?
Who's he? He's a guy. He was in chat. I don't know. I think he's playing a game online tonight. Turned out to be so many friends are on this list, but I have not stayed in any of their basements, and maybe that's a good thing. No, but yeah, I got to hang out with Tony last year, play some games, and him and his wife Robin. It was awesome. It was just and I got to ski in Colorado, so it was kind of epic. And those of you who may know, Tony and I actually started. It was started out being just a little pet project. I'm like, we'll put this out. We'll have some fun, and it's kind of doing really well. So we do an 18xx show called Wheel Tapping, which is interesting. It's a lot of fun. I got to record that this weekend, actually.
Okay.
Cool. Also, he was then one of the first people to mail me a gift. He actually sent me something in the mail. He sent me a first player marker for one of the games that we play, which was kind of awesome and amazing. That was pretty cool. See, then we had John Cox of John Gets Games. That was good. He was a lot of fun. Commiserating about the tech and dealing with it. And I think at the time he was doing event planning and management and site work and convention work and stuff like that. And he was hating life. So I'm really glad that he's actually been able to kind of get out and make the board game life. So if you need walkthroughs, talkthroughs, and general impressions, I like his style. He does good stuff.
Absolutely.
We're going to skip
over.
If
I ever had to do an episode of the show where you were absent, I could just call John. I think I could do the beer at the beginning and then just let the camera roll for 45 minutes and then just pick it off when we're done and no problem.
It's funny. That's a common problem with people who do like podcasting and things, especially the people who do it solo. Like there cannot be a moment of dead air. They're constantly go, 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 go. Definitely learn that.
Which is and by the way, like God bless everyone who can do that because that's exceedingly hard. Just talk coherently. I can't fill the 30 seconds that I'm on the spot here without babbling to be able to do that for an extended period of time and come out and be actually producing something someone wants to hear is remarkable.
I don't feel self-conscious at all doing this. Like I really don't. Like I don't care if there's like 200 people in chat and it's running by that I couldn't read it. But there's something about you just talking to a camera alone that's just it's weird. And if you ever watch me do it, you'll notice that I have to have a shtick or a camp to it, right? Like I can't just I have to have a character in between me and the screen, even if that character is just me, just being a little more me. Oh, you got to miss our next guest, Dan. I think this was your first absence from the show, if I'm not mistaken, and that was Glenn. That guy. So, okay, that's enough. Longest game ever. I say I don't have to edit much. 4 hours.
You guys were playing a rolling right?
Oh my goodness. No, Dan. We were playing a roll talk right because it was roll. Then it was one of I don't know if anybody follows. If anybody follows Glenn on social media, you understand that he just has random thoughts throughout the day. And he feels the need to share them with everybody. And it's fine. It's
Wonderful.
Usually interesting. But it was the exact same way when you're talking to him. Because it was constantly like, so what do you think about? And I'm like, oh no. Which actually made me think, like, how about what if we made a talk show and we called it Roll and Talk? And you rolled and then you had a conversation and then made your move and then went on. Like that was I actually had that idea right around this time. Like, because some people just talk forever.
Yeah, I don't know that you'd ever. I think, unfortunately, you went straight to the top of that. I think every other guest would have been a disappointing branch from where you were. You started at the very acme of that concept with Glenn.
Very, very
Very
true. I think it's highly possible. Um, so we also have Patrick Hillier, the pun master extraordinaire, joining us tonight. So I kind of feel like we need to pause and make him say one. But
and then pull it ahead across the screen.
yep, yep, absolutely. So let's see. Then we had Gil Hova. Now that was an interesting one. I kind of didn't know what to expect out of that one, but it was that was a complete blast. I like talking to highly creative people. We got to meet his ferret. Her name begins with a T. I forget off the top of my head. I'm horrible. I forget names. Period. I forget yours if it didn't have make you wear a name tag. That's why I put this down here, just so I go, who am I talking to again? Oh yeah, you. That guy. That guy. Right there. So that was a lot of fun, and we got to talk about that. And I can't wait for High Rise. I'm still waiting. Excited. Then we had Matt Morgan. Matt Morgan, the first.
In studio.
So fun fact, the Trixie and Trillium Gil, and Trixie was on the show, I believe. Thank you. We actually had Matt on the show, and he actually came in studio. Funny fact, he was actually the second guest we recorded in studio, because we had recorded with Chris Miller of the Secret Cabal in April. But what we wanted to do with Chris, and I still do, I would love to just do cooking with Chris's, and him and I just do cooking shows and just call it done. I think that would be hysterical. But I had to go back up to where he lives, which is about almost 2 hours away, to record that part of the show. So his show got broken up, and that's coming up later. But Matt Morgan, full on in the house, and that was awesome. What'd you think of that, Dan? Having a live studio guest.
Great. That was great. Gave it a cool energy. Like I said, there were a couple of guests who come through the screen and can create that energy just by sheer force of personality. But having someone there made that happen for free, and that was fun. And that's one of the masterminds, one of the key personnel behind making PAX Unplugged happen every year here in Philly. Knock on wood for 2020. We owe him a debt. I see him there every time. And it's amazing. Very cool what he does, and very cool to get an inside perspective on that. Certainly for me, I assume I represent the everyman here, in that I had no idea, what goes into organization at that scale. And his job is a really unique one, and it was really cool to hear about.
It was. It really was. And again, Matt became a friend. Matt's the first ever mule. He actually brought me back something from Essen, which was kind of awesome. So cheers for that. The other cool thing about Matt's show, behind the scenes, is I had ready to go an alternate sketch, and depending on the time and when he showed up, I wanted to do board gamers getting cupcakes, and I had like cameras in the car, and I was ready to drive to our local cupcake store get some cupcakes and interview them on the way.
A la comedians in cars getting coffee.
Exactly. I was kind of going to try that one out, because I was so excited, man. I'm like, I have a live guest. This is going to be great. Much to my chagrin, he would be the last live guest we would get. So, my dream of standing on the PAX stage and actually doing a Tonight Show have kind of calmed down, but definitely early on, I was all about it. I wanted to have a comedian. I wanted to have like 2 interviews and maybe an act, and I was ready to do it. I thought it would be amazing, but that there's that point Where you're like, well, I want to put on this awesome show, and then they shove you in this little theater down in the corner, and they put you up against, shut up and sit down, and you don't get anybody but your mom. Which may have happened to a friend of mine. Just saying. Um, so then we did that. Then we did Ella. Ella was another interesting one because that was, again, man, timey-wimey dealing with Australia. It's just like we had to record it in the future because they're a day ahead. And it was very confusing. Listen, people, if it wasn't for Google Calendar, me being able to specify a date, a time, and a time zone, this show would never happen. Because if I couldn't send you a Google invite and have it automatically register your times, no. No, I apparently can't figure time zones out. It's a little too much for me. I understand why like those old news shows had like all the clocks from around the world up behind them. I get it now. All right. Dan, you still with us?
Not dead yet.
Oh, come on. You're not fooling anyone.
I'm not dead.
Oh, you will be in a minute. All right. So if you guys have questions, I'm happy to pause down memory lane. We're well over halfway. Well, that's a problem that Patrick can't figure out Central Time because it's his time. See what he did there? What I can't figure out is states that just say, like Arizona. Like you can like literally like lose an hour, gain an hour walking across the Hoover Dam because the time is different on both sides during daylight savings. I'm like, it just needs to go away. All right. So if you have any questions, just put a couple question marks in front and throw it in the chat. It's very easy for us to see. Doing a little different tonight. I decided I want to see all your chat all the time because you're awesome. So, you know what? I think we're kind of we don't want to flatten our curve. We want it to spike tonight. So we want a nice big spike. And I think we're kind of at that spike right now because I think people have been here an hour and they're like, what the hell am I doing here? I'm tired. I'm done. Well, they're whatever. So they're just waiting for me to get drunker. I guess. So, I want to make like
only oblige them, Chris.
What's that?
It's important to oblige them.
It is, and I read online that alcohol kills the virus. So I'm doing my part.
Nope.
Yeah, that and I'm a hermit, but I always was, so it's not really a big deal. Anyway,
a hermit with a well-stocked shelf.
Yeah, not so much anymore. So if I may, I'm gonna pause a minute because I apparently can't figure out tech, and I had wanted to have like a ticker across the top, and I kind of ran out of time today. But this show, the only reason I've done it this long is two. It's, because I've enjoyed it and I've had fun. And the reason I've enjoyed it and have fun is because the people who have both been on the show and the people who are part of the show, and by part of the show, I mean, everybody in chat, everybody who's given a penny, given a comment, like I swear to God, there is... I think I can literally count how many thumbs down all our videos have on one hand. If it's more than 3, I think I'm surprised. But the group of the community that we've built has just been awesome. And, I can't say that enough. And if we do Origins, I'm going to continue to do Whiskey Night no matter what. So that's going to keep happening. There's no way I think Clay would let me stop if I wanted to. So that'll continue to happen. And we'll continue to go to Origins. If Origins doesn't happen this year, then we'll just do it next year. It just might be wheel tapping and that. But always you guys are invited. But I generally want to say thank you because everybody has just been awesome, like from day one, even to the point where like I'm kind of disappointed Chris Henderson isn't in chat because he deserves kind of a special medal. um, I swear that man puts more effort into the show than I did because his I'll be honest with you, when you do shows and you do things like that, the first person I would hire would be somebody to write every YouTube description, every post about it, anything that requires lengthy typing. I would immediately hire somebody to do that because that's just annoying to me. I know somebody else loves it, and Chris is one of them. If you go and you look back at his comments, the amount of work that he put in recapping our game shows it was amazing. It was just absolutely amazing. So he is, and even to the point where like last year at Origins, like I'm busy, I'm talking, I'm demoing Pipeline, and going through the teach and everything. He literally just runs up, hands me a bottle of wine, says I'll catch up with you later, and then runs off. It was hysterical. It was a wine and run, but it was absolutely amazing. So, but literally everybody who's touched the show in some way is, I hate to say family because like I don't like my family all that much. If you're watching, I'm sorry. I love you kids, but I like my nieces and my nephews, let's be honest. But everybody else, but the you can't choose your family, but you can choose your friends. And, you guys kind of really make this all worth doing as long as we've done it. And if we do anything more, it'll be because I want to give you guys something else. So maybe it's monthly fiasco days. I think there's stuff to be done. So we shall see. We shall see. So there you go. We're going to pause in the middle. We're going to get a little sappy. It's going to be cool.
Give a toast to everyone.
Yes, here.
100% of the game all night, the tribe, clan. I don't know what you're going with, but cheers to all of you. Thank you so much for.
I think we called them insomniacs for a while.
Well, all night, you see.
Yeah, I think I'm too clever for my own good, or maybe I'm ahead of my time. I don't know. So what's funny, Dan? I kind of feel like, like have you seen any of the stuff like Jimmy Fallon or any of them have been doing recently? I kind of feel like, guys, give me a call. Like, I can help you out. Because they're just like doing it on an iPhone, and I'm just like, guys, like it's not that hard.
You're pulling it off all along. We were prepared for this.
I know. And then, just as it happens, we're like, we're done. Talk about great timing, right? But hey, you're all here now. That's all that matters. So we got a lot of cheers, a lot of saluts. Thanks, guys. You all rock.
We love you guys.
Yes, and I love the work that Patrick has done. So Patrick seems to think that all those who are panic buying ice cream, tinned fruit, and raspberry sauce, are you planning to self-isolate for a month of Sundays? And cut. All right, moving on.
Usually don't have to have.
We had Emma. Emma was a blast, and we had Chris Miller. We finally got to go out there and got to make that chicken with him. That was just so good. That was a fun afternoon. I have to say, a lot of beer. Jamie came and worked the cameras, so it was like, the three of us just hanging out in Chris's kitchen. Chris got these brand new knives that showed up that were like super lethal and sharp. They were ridiculous, and he's all like, "Do you know about these?" And I'm like, no. I didn't, and they were like amazing. But that was a lot of fun. If you want something different from my show, go look at that. That was probably the most different episode we did. Dan, you keep touching your face. Elena says stop. She's a nurse. You should listen to her.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think the damage is the damage is already done. But also like I'm not responsible here. If you want to avoid any of this face palming, you need to not repeat the puns on air. Normally, the camera is not on me when I'm first exposed to Patrick's pun for the week, so I don't have to get my reaction live.
No, no, and they're always a groaner, always. That was one of the best additions to the show, and I think it was around. Oh, no, I think it was early season 2, end of season 1 that we kind of talked to Patrick, and he said he'd do it, and that was amazing. That was a great addition. I my literal thought was I want the Jack Handy moment from like Saturday Night Live, like thoughts by Jack Hanley. But I really wanted them like board game related, and that was my initial goal. But I couldn't find anybody to be mean about board gamers because nobody wanted to. And I'm like, I think Patrick likes puns. I think Patrick would be a good one for that. Next thing you know, broadcast history.
Priceless.
Yep.
Priceless. I hope that continues in some form after this venue for them is gone.
Awesome. Then we had Daryl Andrews. Um, that was actually the first time I had to contact a guest and ask if he wanted me to cut part of his interview out. Do you know that?
What was that about? I don't remember.
Um, well, there was a big thing that kind of went went back and forth when Azul, the stained glass of Sintra, and then obviously Sagrada is the original stained glass game. And then watch the episode, but there was some stuff that was less than accurate, and the company that he cites has, well, let's say it's not the last time they did something like that was questionable in our field. So
Yeah, yeah, and he was doing the right thing. The wounds were a little fresh when we were talking to him,
yeah.
so yep.
But I reached out like a week later and I said, "Hey, I'm editing the show. Do you want me to cut that out?" And he's like, "Nope, leave it in." So, but he's off. He started a new design studio, and I'm excited to see what he's got next because he's awesome, dude. He's one
That's
of
cool
the.
stuff.
He's definitely one of those people I love to see. Then we had Carla Kopp, and this one actually came from Glenn. Glenn kind of. This was a complete cold call. Really didn't know much going into this one, but Glenn told me I should talk to her, and really, really fresh because she still is, right? She's brand new, starting her own design company, starting it from scratch, and it was really pretty amazing to kind of have that chat and kind of see how that came up. So, oh, Eric Summerer. So this would be one of the. This was a big get, I thought, for me. Like this was somebody who I'd listened to since, there was Will Wheaton from Tabletop was my entry vector. He was Patient Zero, and then we kind of move on to Dice Tower is the next thing I hit, and Eric just. I don't know. His sense of humor and everything just clicked right with me right away. So, even to the point where he did a commercial for me, just he's super funny. He's super awesome. If I could move north and hang out more with him, I would, because he's just an awesome guy.
One of
And
the
that was
all-time game highlights, in my opinion. We did our game trailers,
yes.
in a world, um, which was
Oh, that's right.
pretty much entirely the two of us bumbling through in order to set up Eric to hit home runs. We were just trying not to make easy outs.
Yeah.
And then he did a game trailer for Operation, the old board game, and it was ace, absolutely ace.
Oh, man, he was so much fun, and he was really into it. And it was just amazing. And then, of course, I think I learned on the show just how much, like, audio work he does for, like, Audible and things like that, to the point where he actually, sorry, Elena. Um, where to the point where he actually um, voiced over the book for Scott, um, for Scott King, right? He
Yeah.
actually had voiced over his books, which I then promptly went out and read. Because I believe I asked him in the show, like, what books would you recommend that I listen to that you've read? And he talked about the one that was about the Sleepy Hollow, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, it's very YA, but it was a lot of fun.
Awesome.
So that was awesome. All right, then we had Jake and Danielle Bach, sorry, who did Draft Mechanic, and this was the first time we had a pair on the show, which would not be the last. As a matter of fact, I think we've had up to Cinco, but it was definitely a lot of fun. They shared our love of beer. Dan, what
Yeah.
was?
I mean, they're very simpatico right there. Like that's a show that I identify with very easily. They were doing pairing the board games and beers long before we were doing our part. Um, glad to it was an easy conversation to have with them. We got to throw their own show back at them too. We asked them to try to do a reverse version of their own beer sommelier beer pairing uh, game that they do on theirs.
Yep, and that was kind of, I think, there have been a few times where we've done games that really kind of showed we know our guest, and that was, the Eric Summer in a World was a blast. This one was a blast. Oh, so good, so good. Then we had again another. I slept in their basement friend, Mark Streed, actually. Board Game Corner. Now he does Dice Tower stuff. I really love Mark. I enjoy everybody on the list. Don't get me wrong, but Mark has a special place in my heart because he's just, man, he's just awesome. He just really wants everybody to succeed, and he just goes out of his way to make, you know, when I got laid off work, two people called me. He was one of them, and it was like within a day or two. It was amazing. And he just, the man has a huge, huge heart, and, just like to see good things happen to good people. And he's one.
Yeah, he's a wellspring of positive energy. He's remarkable, and no matter what context, on the show, off the air, run into him at a con, it's all he just has it bubbling out of him, and it's impossible to not smile
No,
once you have come away from a conversation with Mark.
no, it was awesome. And and the cool thing that came out of that conversation I didn't know about, he actually did like photography when it was like on the set of like Next Generation and stuff like that, which was pretty awesome. that was pretty that was pretty cool. Let's see. Then we had James Hudson on the show from I guess at the time he had not merged yet with Skybound, so it was still just Druid City, but he was again just awesome, easy to talk to, very gregarious, love him. Again, another positive dude. He just started up a blog again, so I
Oh, very
highly
cool.
recommend listening to that, watching that. And he just started up a YouTube channel, so go check it out. Awesome. Oh, Matthew Jude. Oh, Matthew Jude. Wow. That was interesting. Were you around for the
Talking,
Matthew Jude? I think you weren't.
yeah, absolutely,
Were you?
absolutely, yes. And talking about doing the games, preparing the games being a tricky thing to do. Like I can't imagine the amount
Oh,
of effort and energy it takes to do what he does. Um, because he's the one on the spot for virtually all of the games they do. And yeah, I couldn't keep pace with that. That's a full time job.
yeah, and he's a very I love his sense of humor. It's very dry, so it kind of fits mine. But he was a blast to have on. He does a lot of stuff. If you guys need podcasts edited, yada yada, he's great. This game is broken, is the show Dan's referring to, and I love it because we both started around the same time, and I remember we were kind of like, "Hey, we're gonna do something different. We're gonna do something cool," and I'm like, "You guys are doing a lot of work." I would love to do like a video game show and have a panel, and one of my goals was to do like an on-stage show of like Hollywood Squares, but with all board game geeks and nerds, and it would be awesome. Like I would really want to do that. So,
Don't talk in the past tense. You can still,
I I know, but I need to leverage all my cachet so that I can make that happen. You know, that's
all that clout that you've generated over the years.
yeah, all all that clout. Anyway, if you like the interesting stuff, I'll bring it up again later. But Matthew does a awesome podcast, Death by Monsters, where you may hear me say that again in a little bit. That was very interesting. It's one of my favorite listens these days. I have two podcasts that go right to the top. The Incorrigible Party, whenever it comes into my podcast feed, goes right up to the top because I don't want to get behind. And then Death by Monsters comes in right behind them. Like, I swear to God, I'm not lying. All the other stuff is just, podcast fodder. Speaking of podcast fodder, we have Mike DeLisio on. That was interesting. That man will do anything, any podcast he can get his voice onto, he'll be there. So don't worry about it. If you wait long enough, he'll be on the podcast. But
that was great.
No, I like Mike. I like Mike a lot. He's a really good guy. A lot of fun. Definitely, we definitely kind of feel the same way about a lot of things. Ambi Valdez we had on Board Game Blitz, and Ambi also was she was on before the show because we did a top 5 countdown because I thought for a while I'd do those, but the problem was that top lists are a lot of work, number one, and number two, I don't know that people care about my top 10s. I really don't. And so I did a few of them. They were fun, but we're kind of done. But here's the stupid part. The most watched video on my channel is our top 5 18xx games that her and I did. So,
well, a early omen of what would come with wheel tapping, that you just speak right to the heart of the 18xxer, that you have a powerful connection, and you've correctly pivoted to take full advantage of that.
Sure. We'll go with all that, Dan. It has nothing to do with there are only 5 voices screaming in that space, but there's about 50 million in this one, so it's a little different. But that was a lot of fun. I had that was a great interview talking with her, and of course, before we knew she was going to have twins, so we didn't get to ask any of those questions. Yeah. End of season 1, Dan. What do you think? That was impressive.
It's reflecting back. We really packed him in back then. That's whew.
That was 1 year, man.
Seriously.
What were we thinking? But there's, you know what, I say that, but I can't feel like there's any that were phoned in or any that.
Oh no.
I think it was just the pace was insane. It really was. And then we kind of decided, like, look, for sanity's sake, and to be honest with you guys and girls, it's not Dan's sanity, it was mine, because the editing, was taking time. And even though I don't edit a lot out, and that it still at least takes as long as it does to record, edit, cut in the things. Like, if you look back, you'll see, like, I got fancy with the graphics about what we were drinking. I think that's about to come up in the Stephen Bonacore episode. I'm like, I made fancy graphics. Yeah, that takes a lot of time. You know, I'm fast with Illustrator and stuff, but that stuff took a lot of time. And then that's when we kind of decided that the little green screen magic trick we did with Dan with the bottle, who kept buying green labels and throwing them under the green screen camera.
I think
It just
about 50% of the cans and bottles I brought to the table after that would have some significant amount of green in them. It was a
it was.
special day.
All right, so we can kind of these are too bad, I don't think. But I will say, um, so much fun having Stephen Bonacor on the show because we really got to get our beer nerd on. That was a lot of fun. It was also us
Yeah,
trying to say we're going to cut down the show to like half an hour, 45 minutes. That was hard to cut down. That like it was hard to stay on topic because you know he always says if you can get him talking about beer or his company, he'll talk forever, and he's not lying.
it didn't take only one of those subjects either. Every picture you showed in your like Twitter stalking for
Oh,
that, I
that
think, had
was
a 20-minute story attached to it. So no, it was a delight.
oh yes.
Um, if the voice I brought or the sensibility I brought to the show when I joined was more beer and drinking talk, the Bonacor episode was probably the peak of that bit of that component, that little flavor. Because there was a whole lot. You could have easily edited a beer only episode out of that conversation.
Yes, and that was great. He was so easy to talk to and just kind of work with. Oh, that was a great, great episode one. I loved coming back and doing that one. Then we had Dan Hughes on, and I vividly remember Dan Hughes playing because that was when we got the overhead camera. We got that sorted out, and you were playing the carpet laying game, Marrakesh, and we were
Yep.
going nuts. Like, I love Dan. And then we played the. Oh, I made him like talk about English words that us crazy Americans don't understand. That was good. That was good.
He is the perfect authority to have pontificate about certain choice words.
Absolutely. Then now here you go again. Here's somebody I didn't know, and it was literally Gil. Actually, Gil Mello from Dwarf Token, who might be on the chat. I haven't seen him in a while. He recommended Connor McGooey of Inside Up Games, and this man rocketed to one of my favorite people of all times to see at a con. To the point where like if you walk up and you don't get a big bear hug from this guy, like it something feels off. Like I better get one next con. Just saying. I don't care. Virus be damned. But he was a blast. He's an awesome guy in this business. I love him to death. You know what? I have to pull out an anecdote. At PAX U this year, he was struggling because his product did not get there. It was supposed to be there, and it didn't show up. He started his day Friday with a booth that was just literally borrowed from people around the con, like literally.
Wow.
Like I think he had like some locals brought in some of his games, and that's what he was doing for the first half of the day. And it wasn't until like noon or so. But you know what? I mean, like I can't imagine how stressful that would be. Well, spoiler, I'm probably going to know how stressful that will be given my current role that I'm doing. More on that in a minute. But I can't imagine how stressful that must have been for him. And you know what? I swear to God, you would not have known. You didn't know. And it was amazing. Like it wasn't until like I think halfway through Friday, a pallet finally showed up. And he was actually had some product. But it was his attitude through the whole process
Anyway,
was
though,
incredible.
because that's a moment for you to talk about what you have lined up for the future, right? Isn't that the
Yeah, yeah. And, it doesn't have anything to do with our decisions or the show or anything around that whatsoever. It really doesn't because it was not even brought up. Like, I run a YouTube show. They're like, you do what? Like, yeah, I'm famous. They're like, no, you're not. You're not even board game famous. Like 200 people know who I am, damn it. And 5 of them are in my chat right now. Shut up. Um, no, I actually took a position I started last week now, which kind of surprised me and it's amazing that it's still held. But I work for Renegade Games now and I do their event planning. So I actually am in the process of running their events and planning their events and making sure that everything will get from A to B, from C to D, and yeah, it's been a lot of fun working behind the scenes. So if you probably will see me at a few cons, and hopefully, please God, don't cancel Essen. That's all I have to say. I can finally go to Germany. Don't cancel it. So, thanks, Tim. It was kind of awesome. I love it. I'm already loving the job. Like I enjoy a lot of the work that's going into it. So it's just a part-time gig. So I still need more. So inkandfilm.com for all your board game needs that are not met by Critical Role Designs, Critical Hit Designs. So check them out. All right, moving on. Thank you, Dan, for that sequitur. I think that's actually the first time I've talked about that in public. So it's not that I'm not supposed to. I just haven't.
Sure.
All right. It's not like I'm reviewing games and my integrity is in question.
We've never
um,
pretended to have integrity, so we don't have to worry about it.
well, there is that. There is that. All right. So then we had Greg Spence of the Broken Token, who helped make the wall of awesome that is behind you. Um, so so real quick trivia question, everybody. How many? And I have the answer. But how many meeples made up my entire wall? Do you know? Care to guess? I will tell you this is a full 8x4 sheet of plywood that covers the entire wall.
Yeah,
And
are they? I don't know if they're equipped to know that. Has there ever been a shot that captured the whole wall? Like I've seen it in person plenty of times, but I don't know. It never makes it on camera in all its glory, does it?
So you're gonna have to count the M&Ms, Dan. You're gonna have to count. The kid who won that in grade school was the person who could figure out the volume formula, and then he figured out basically realized that they were a centimeter roughly wide and then half a centimeter tall and figured it out.
That's impressive.
Yeah, it is. So, oh, I see some questions coming. I see some answers coming in. Oh, John is the guy who bets like $1 on the Price is Right, isn't he? 42. Well, while that's the answer to life, the universe, and everything, Patrick, it is not the answer here today. And cold. Here's a fun fact. I had to order it. I had to order 2 orders from Broken Token. The first order he shipped to me. The second order I picked up at PAX U the first year, or Origins. Like my wife's like, "What are you going there for?" And I'm like, "I need more meeples because I had holes in my wall." So actually, Leland is pretty close. There is 114 actually up here. So good job, Leland. You're awesome. There you go. So, Broken Token, check them out wherever fine board game inserts are sold, or awesome like dice towers. Still had to pay for them, damn it. It's not a Bob. It's not a Bob. Then we had Alan Gertie. We had our anniversary special. That was fun. got to put all the clips together, dump them in. That was a blast. And then we got to play monikers again with Mr. Allen himself. So that was a good time. And then we had Mandy. Mandy Hutchinson came on, and we got to play. Oh, I love Deep Sea Adventure. That was pretty awesome. That was a really good chat. Again, well, now she's a coworker technically. That was a lot of fun to have that chat. Let's see, then Dominic Crepouche. So we got to talk. So
that was one that went deep.
Yeah, that went super deep. We talked about him like deep sea fishing, because he actually was a seaboat captain in Alaska. Then on top of that, we got to play a very memorable game of Wits and Wagers.
Well, here's one where knowing our guest backfired on us. This would not have occurred to me as a possibility. We obviously very deliberately were picking, one of his games, but had no idea that he had an encyclopedic memory of every question he'd ever put in Wits and Wagers, so that there was a repeated problem. I don't know. I need to review the final cut of the show to see how many of those times we had to go to another card because he's like, no, I'd remember it. I just remember the answer.
That was hysterical. I mean, in retrospect, if you could go back in time, yeah, we probably would have done better to choose some of our own questions and make them up. But
I mean,
we thought we'd be fine.
If you played Jeopardy with Alex Trebek, he's not going to be like, oh no, I remember every double Jeopardy we've ever done for 20 years.
I swear to God, you remembered the how far does an average person travel to work? I think was one of the questions. They remembered it almost to the decimal point. Wow, it was.
They don't all work.
It was good.
Every idea we have is not always a success.
Hence why we're here, Dan. Hence why we're here.
Entertainment through failure. That's our motto.
I like it. You got to fail up, right? Fail up. Speaking of failing up, Marty Quinnell, he's apparently French. He was on, and that was a blast doing defend the Southern food sucks. Defend yourself. You know what? There was a lot of fun back
when I got the preview of those slides.
And I don't even agree with any of them. To be honest with you, I don't agree with most of them either. I think it was Southern food sucks.
You were just jabbing at him, but it was tough to watch.
Oh, biscuits and gravy. I love biscuits and gravy. Sure, there are some things I don't understand, but that's going to be true across the board. And then one of the few times the designer of a game writes in to say, guys, you played that so wrong. Our play of War Chest was so wrong. And then Marty was losing track. Yeah.
I don't think I was aware of this anecdote. I didn't realize that there were corrections incoming.
Oh yeah. The whole draw all your guys out and play them is no, you draw one at a time. So we had that wrong. That Marty was losing track. I won, but it's only because I had the board in front of me. That's the only reason I won. So, one of our not proud moments. That was kind of rough.
Well, hey, you were saying you were introduced or reintroduced perhaps to the whole designer game hobby by Tabletop. I feel like that was one of their charming signature aspects of that show was that they went live with episodes with inevitable rules errors. So you're just maintaining that tradition.
You know what? And I think I learned early on because I saw a lot of the one of my early exposures to the board game outside world was through like what tabletop went through when some rules got wrong. And kind of, I don't want to say the pitchforks or the lynch mob because it wasn't quite that bad, but they were not exactly kind and welcoming to those errors. And there were some people who were really bent out of shape. And I'm like, I think I learned very early on in my return to designer gaming that I'm like, ultimately, it's about the fun. You know, there are a few friends in our group, Dan, that will be very angry if they find out a rule's been wrong, or they will sit there and they will fix it if they know it's wrong. And I'm happy to fix it. I don't really care that much, but at the same time, I'm like, did you have fun? Then that's fine. Like, okay, so you didn't win this time because I screwed up a rule. Fine, we'll play again and we'll get it right this time. Like, I don't, my life doesn't revolve around whether I win or die under the right or wrong.
Yeah, and those little tweaks just create a slightly different game, and that's the game we played, and that game was also fun.
And
You
you
know,
know what's
that's
funny is I don't know about you, but it seems like 90% of the time when I get rules wrong, I make things way harder. like, like things are way harder than they should be.
uh, I will. There are exceptions. I have played. Oh darn it! What was the Energy Empire? Is that the sequel to Manhattan
Yes,
Project?
yes.
I played that with a rule long that caused it to go about twice as long, and I might have
Sorry.
been a little peeved at the end of that about that mistake. That
Yeah, sometimes if something can't end, that's a problem. But generally, I tend to, you know what one I've gotten wrong, I think twice now, is Way of the Panda, the Simon game. It's an action
familiar with, but I
selection area control. I don't know. I always get the turn order or worker placement rules wrong or cheap or expensive. I should just get rid of it because I'll never remember it right when I go to play it again anyway. But all right, real quick. So how are you doing on your beverage, Dan?
beverage is fine. I my stamina is fading rapidly. I'm not at 100% here, as you can tell.
All right,
So I'm holding on.
all right. We're gonna try and truck through. We don't have a ton. My Manhattan is almost gone. So,
Oh, see that right there? That's our clock.
yeah, but I got that, so it's okay. I got backup.
You're a man who
I brought three glasses that each had an ice cube in them, and I've just been working my way through. I don't have my bartender here, people. I need to make it happen myself, and this is
plans.
not good.
Little sneak behind the curtain there, peek behind the curtain, folks. Get to see how we
Dan
keep
legit
the.
bartends. He brings me the beer. Like, I swear to God. Like, he shows up with it. He brings it. It's new. It's fun. It's exciting. That was all legit. It happened. And then, like, I'd show up on my desk. There's a beer there. And I'm like, what are we drinking? I'm like, smells like ass.
One time.
Awesome. All right. So I've been stalling a little bit because I kind of want to. When I send out when I used to send out invitations for people to come on the show, I used to try to tailor the episodes I would give them to watch for reference, right? Because I think that it's important to be able to watch the show and kind of understand where the show's coming from, the voice of the show. I'm not trying to be Larry King. I'm not trying to catch you out. We're not trying to play those games, right? We're just trying to have a conversation. And one of the ones that generally always goes is the interview with Rob Davio. Now, I met Rob for the first time at PAX U, and then a couple months later, he said yes to being on the show. and he came on. And Rob and I have one thing in common. Like, he's a foodie, and I'm a chef. So we kind of like to have a lot of the food talk in common. And I also had spent like the 2 days leading up to working with him, I literally spent working in the kitchen at work with my my phone up on the shelf watching videos of Rob. I just made a playlist. I searched everything Rob ever said online and on YouTube, and I just watched and listened to the point where when I actually asked him a question at the end of the episode, I'm like, hey, in one of these videos, you kind of talked about this. And he's like, I did? That's good, because I was just thinking about that again. I was going to make a video about it. But if I already talked about it, I'm not going to talk about it again. It was just, it was the antithesis to the Jamie Stegmaier interview, right? It's kind of, I felt that I needed to get this right. And he was one of the people who, I don't want to say was like one of the smartest people on the show, but, you know, because I don't want to put down, like, you know, the likes of like Glenn and other people who've been on in the past, but, you know, or John for that matter. But I wanted to make sure that I got to the dirt. And I tell you what, that was probably, if I had to have a favorite child, Rob would probably get a nod. I would have to argue. What do you think about that one, Dan?
I mean, we've talked before about how it was he tapped into something primal, maybe, and maybe that's an overstatement, the wrong adjective to use, but something like that, something very deep about our enjoyment of these games that he was able to crystallize into words, and it spoke deeply, I think, to the board game fan in us.
Yeah, it really did. And I think I said this on our goodbye episode, but the whole I have a questionnaire, and it's just kind of get the juices flowing, put me in the mind of you before we start the show. I read through it real quick again and go. And I vividly remember his like answer to where's your favorite place to game, because I think that says a lot about you and your gaming habits. Like, is it at your kitchen table? Is it, you know, at the game store with your friends? Is it over your friend's house who has, you know, a really awkward arrangement but has an awesome place? Um, John, the abuse is totally warranted and necessary. You know it. But you know, when he said, like, he was super specific. It was like, you know, this year in my parents' basement this time. It's just like he obviously had a very vivid, clear, like, place he liked to teleport himself, and it was just awesome to capture that. And I'm glad I was the one to do it.
These moments, man.
Let's see. Then we had Josh Silva. So he was one of the Brawling Brothers. Represent if you have a newly found hole in your listening library, I recommend Brawling Brothers. Ding. Sounds more like a glass clink, but it works.
Better
that
sound.
was a lot of fun. And one of the best parts about their show is that they really kind of rib on each other a lot. Like you might understand, Dan, right? A little bit. Like me with John right now. We actually had a ding counter with how many times he ripped on Brandon, who is his co-host. And while we never got around to having Brandon on the show, Brandon is obviously a friend of the show, and I love Brandon to death. And that was a lot of fun. I thought that was hysterical. And of course, Mr. Pickles. You can't go. You gotta love him. Mr. Pickles made the appearance on the show, so we gotta love him for that. We got to play. That was hysterical because we played on tour together, and he's like, I have this game sitting behind me, but you're going to have to teach it because I don't know it. That was a good time.
Was it?
Still like on tour.
Worked well on the show, too. Worked well on the show, too. My voice is starting to go.
Yeah. You're going, you're coughing. I see it. We're gonna try and hustle through. Then we had
I'm not,
Berkey on, and because at the time he was a sponsor, we kind of called it a sponsor spotlight and kind of had a chat, and it was kind of interesting. That was fun. Then we had Josh Mills. Funny story. Ran into Josh Mills at Origins the following year. Borderline didn't recognize him. Not gonna lie. And like literally, like it's like TC, Chris Kirkman, I think Dan Patrice, and I'm like, I know you, right? It was totally one of those moments. His hair wasn't as crazy, but that was a lot of fun. So Josh Mills, that was a fun. I like all those guys. I get why they name every game, and there's like characters of each other in every other game that they make, and they kind of bounce back. And I get it. They're awesome. So those game designers from North Carolina, they're good dudes. We had Liz Davidson on. Were you here for that, Liz?
yes, absolutely.
Yep,
We
because you were
played
flipping the
Welcome.
cards for Welcome to. That's right.
Yeah, yeah, and
Oh,
that was one of. I was a big fan of Liz prior to that. We're all. She was in the ground floor because we're entering the era of the solo game where all of us are going to be
hey,
solo gamers.
speak for yourself. I'm in the era of the two-player game.
Fair enough.
You're in one of three camps, Dan. This is what I've decided right now. Amidst our COVID-19 lifestyle right now, you are either a solo gamer, you're a, and I'm sorry for all my British audience because there's all of you out there, are you're a two-person gamer, or you're a adult trying to learn how to play a kid's game with a kid and play that same game over and over and over and over and over. Think that's fair?
It's a good time to to find out how much you like the Pokemon trading card game, for instance. It's
Hey, take what you can get, sir. Take what you can get.
there are games
But
there.
that was a lot of fun, and of course, obviously, learning the dead languages and the things that she actually does in real life. Like, oh my God, Liz is like super smart and has no business being on a show with an idiot like this guy. That's what I learned right there.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of what she does and really enjoyed that conversation.
Yeah, and it's nice to see. I don't know if you've paid any attention to, but she's just like, since this actual time, like she's gone on the Dice Tower and she's starting to get a really big reach, which is really kind of awesome. And
Which it deserved. She's great at what she does.
yeah, and she's so approachable and easy to understand, and she talks in a way that you get. So just support her, guys. Oh, I would say this was probably one of the. This was probably one of those like, if you have a guest that kind of takes you back a little bit in time, like they take you back to either when you first started gaming or whatever. I think there's going to be that person, right? And for me, it was Astruval Cifuentes, the retro board gamer. Um, wow, that was such a fun show to do. I have to say, he was an amazing guest, and I wasn't expecting much. Like I didn't know like he hasn't made a lot of content. He hasn't been doing a ton lately. What's this going to be like? And I swear I've made two lifelong friends because, as it turns out, he's an identical twin. So, but oh my God, he's so awesome, and it was so much fun to kind of talk to him about like rooting through these old games and figuring them out and having a ton of fun. And then we got to play the Mad Magazine game with him at the end, which was I think that was one of the best games we played. Like
That was a
it's
lot.
definitely in the top five.
It was a lot of fun.
And you know what? Again, if I want to give out props to people who constantly support the show and try to put us out there throughout our run and everything, Ostraval was one of them. He was constantly retweeting, sending out stuff, and he's an awesome guy in a white T-shirt. That's it. That's it. Let's see. Then we had on the whole gang from Twist Gaming. Oh man, that was fun. We had to get a lot of
This is
people in line to do that one.
one of the few times where the like 20-minute tech nightmare that occasionally preceded one of our episodes was on the other end,
Oh,
where
that
we were.
was. Oh, it's funny. I know they're super stressed, but at the same time, I'm like, it's not me. You know what? It's funny, guys, because there is a reason why I use Zoom over the other services. Number one is that Zoom actually will see my cameras. Like if I want to sit here and host a thing on Zoom, I can do that, right? If I want to go to Skype, it doesn't even see that camera. Like it just sucks. So I get it. I really do. Like when somebody and Chaz Marler and I went through this where I was on his show. That was a ton of fun. And the first time we recorded the entire show. Yeah, and it didn't work. And it was just like, yeah. So there are always problems and there's always tech, and we use tech that is, I'd have to say, Dan, it's surprisingly reliable. Like it generally works 90% of the time. But it's those few times that it doesn't. That
It leaves scars.
Yep, it does.
But yeah, there's
More on
another
that in
guy
a
like
minute.
one of those coming up. Yeah,
Hold that thought.
Twist Gaming does really cool stuff, and they're ones to tune into. Hopefully, they have a chance to up their broadcast schedule
Yeah.
while we're in lockdown, because their show is a really novel take. They're doing something no one else is doing, and I enjoy what they're putting out.
Absolutely. They so I think there's this whole like Twitch life that I don't really I if I go down that rabbit hole, people, I won't come back. I will find the Mad Hatter, and it will be the end of me, and I will get divorced because Sharon will leave me. It's that simple. So I choose not to go down and eat the blue pill for that very reason. But there is a ton of good content, and one of the people at the front is Twist Gaming. So if you check them out, and this interview actually came out of me working with them at Origins earlier that year, because I got to go work on scene and do a couple stuff with them. So let's see. I'm just gonna put something in chat because we are.
Yeah, I live that Twitch lifestyle.
Yeah.
I love movies, but a movie, any good movie, requires your full attention. And what I find is that there's a high percentage of my potential viewing time is going to be split attention. I'm going to be doing something else to some degree. Maybe something else as my primary activity, sure, but I want some screen on. And, it's good to rewatch old stuff that you already know that way, but you can't watch anything new that way. And a lot of those hours get filled with Twitch for me. Getting
so
to know,
in
getting
the background. Okay.
Yep.
Interesting.
And it started that way because I am a retro video gamer, and those are the people I was following. But increasingly, more and more board game content making it on, and people are finding really novel approach. I mean, they're all novel approaches because this is a new frontier, but people are doing lots of different flavors of things in that space, and there's cool stuff to watch.
Absolutely. So, check out. I highly encourage anybody who's been on the show, obviously, support them, because if they're on the show, I like them. So, That's pretty awesome. So after Twist Gaming, we had this is definitely a top five for me, Dan. Do you know who? Do you know who it was?
Mm.
Hmm.
The timeline's been surprising me this whole time. In my head, they were in the wrong order and whatnot. So no, I got no idea.
Kwanchai Moria.
Super cool.
Yeah, Kwanchai was an wow. I mean, like we had the Ryan Goldsberry on earlier, but the Kwanchai talk was just it was just amazing. Like going through talking about his process, and we did a cool thing where we actually toured his career and the games he made throughout the process. So we got to actually walk through and say, "Hey, why did this is where you started, this is where you're ending. What can we expect to see in the future?" And that was awesome.
And one of the um, great contributions I think of what you were doing is that there were several episodes dedicated to speaking to artists.
Oh yeah.
I think we're entering an era where board game art is at a level it's never been at before, and it is an excellent and exciting outlet for some of the cool art that's happening. And I think it's really cool that this show provided some insight into who those people are, what they do, their process. Like board game art is a serious thing and a major part of our hobby.
Absolutely. Oh, we're in the home stretch, Dan. Home stretch. Then you can go cough in your sleeve all you want. Um,
Yeah, I apologize. I know that makes for an unlovely broadcast, and I'm not quick enough on my cough button sometimes, so those are going out. And I apologize to everyone watching. I'm doing my best here, folks.
you are doing remarkably well for somebody who's been sick for two and a half, 3 weeks now.
Yeah, it was really a double dip. No one wants to hear about this, but yes, I was okay for a fair. Like I felt well for a
This
fair
is the
stretch of
reason why
that.
Dan is not in studio, and we are okay with that.
Yeah.
So that brings us to Miss Paula Deming. So again, you want to talk about like top five, fun, excited, can't wait to do the interviews. I loved having Paula on so much. We did it twice because
Has that been widespread public knowledge? Did you ever tweet to that effect? Does
I
people
don't think I
know that
ever did. But I tell you,
secret?
if you want to talk about like professionalism and understanding and ability, like you want to wrap all those in one. Uh, so the funny thing is, the first episode with Paula, Dan was not around for. So it was one of those ones where I had to record on my own because something came up, and then like it's fine, we'll add Dan in, and then next thing you know, I'm like, the file for the first half of the show didn't work. It was bad. Like it was completely corrupted, unrecoverable. Paula came back. She recorded the show again. Dan hopped in this time, and then we were able to actually stitch the show together. And she even remembered every single talking point of the first half, like you would not believe. And believe me when I say the notes are not great. Like I scribble. Like there's like a few little notes, things I want to touch on. Like if a question comes up from a guest during the process, you'll see me scribble something. That's because I have another question that came out of it. So it was it was very very strange. And then like next thing you know, I'm like I had to email Paul. I'm like, Paul, I lost the first half. Like I need you to come back. And I swear to God, she dressed the same way, she set the same way, she did the set, and it was almost identical. It was actually a little better the second time because my questions were in a lot of left field, but the conversation went exactly the same way. I'm like,
Yeah,
wow, take
it's
two.
a fair
Click.
scenario. have it happen, but I don't know that there's any better guest we could have had it happen. I don't know anyone else who could have rolled with it as professionally as Paula did. That was that was amazing.
It was. I tell you what. I mean, if anybody, it was probably both mortally embarrassing for me to have to ask because it was the first time I ever had to ask anybody to re-record anything, and this is episode 59. So we made it pretty far before this ever happened, and then we only lost half. And then on top of it, it's just like if you're gonna have to ask somebody, that was the perfect person to have to ask. So like all of the Death by Monsters, is it a cryptid or is it a board game? Like all that we got on the first try. But that whole first half, oh no. That's all Paula Magic because she's amazing. And she really is, and I love her to death. So I think this is good. So there's a question in the chat, and it is has Sharon ever watched me tape a show? So the funny thing is, Dan is probably the better person to ask because where I record is kind of we have an L-shaped basement, and where I record is kind of shoved in the L corner. So Sharon, like Dan will see Sharon come down and probably come in, peek around, see me, and then she'll turn around and leave. But has she actually sat here for a show? Once, and that was for the Wits and Wagers. Like
Oh, okay.
that was the only time I had an actual audience. I had Reuven and his girlfriend and Sharon. They kind of hung out a little bit. And she'll watch live shows. She might be watching this upstairs. And if so, love you, babe. There you go. And Tim is, would it ever be hilarious if Sharon shouted from upstairs, Chris, dinner is ready? I think I've given you enough information to know that whoever's going to be doing the shouting, you're probably looking at right now. So that isn't to say she doesn't cook. It's just I do most of it. So, and to be honest with you, Sharon is hysterical. When we're recording, she won't do anything that causes noise in any of the house. Like, she won't run water. She won't, like, walk around real loud. Like, she's hysterical. Like, she is very conscious of any kind of noises that may come through. Like, she's just like, are you done recording so I can do this thing now? And, like, can't do laundry. Can't she? Everything. It's hysterical. But
Level of consideration not shown in my house when I'm on a work conference call. I will
But you're fine tonight, so I think you need to do all your work conference calls right here in front of the game library. I think that's your.
Yeah.
You know what? It's a good thing I don't like do work. Actually, I do work conference calls. Like I should probably I have a green screen. See, I can just kind of pull it down, and then that would make for some fun work conference calls. I think, right? Yes, Sharon is more than a saint. Trust me. Actually, I don't think she'd want to be a saint. I think she'd want to be a prophet. Actually, if truth be known. All right. Then we had BJ from Board Game Gumbo. So the original plan. What's that?
Very fun.
You missed that one, didn't you?
No, I was there for Board Game Gumbo.
See, guys, I don't even remember when Dan was here and he wasn't. Could be this, could be that. I don't know.
Yeah, did we lose Gil? I don't know if we plugged the times that Gil co-hosted. He should be chirping in chat during episodes. Was like, yeah, that was me.
You should be, because so I've only ever asked two people to be stand-in bartenders, and I'll talk about him now since he obviously left chat because he's not the loudest voice in the room. Glenn and Gil, they were the two, and Gil pretty much always would drive out. It's about an hour, a little over an hour and a half drive, and he'll come out and he'll actually sit here and he'll do that, which is pretty kind of awesome. Thank you. And then of course, Glenn, I was going to do remote, but Glenn's a busy boy, and I didn't want my show to last 4 hours. So there's that. But oh, excuse me, BJ. The deal with BJ was the original plan that we were trying to do was to literally do a full crossover episode where we recorded our show our way and he recorded his show his way. So we would actually both be recording at the same time. Like, that was the goal. Didn't happen. I actually recorded BJ's show while I was in Dallas, Texas. I think I was out Houston for work. So I did his show and then he came on ours when I returned. But it was a lot of fun and good. Then we finally got Mr. Paul Grogan on the show, all the way from across the pond. Another fun one. Man, you want to talk about somebody who's putting in a lot of work? That guy. He's really awesome. You know, everybody's got stuff. He's got stuff, but he covers the stuff I like. So I'm like, he has access to all the publishers I like. You know, Vladimir Vlada. He just check out his channel, gamingrules.com. There you go. Check it out. Then we had Chaz back on. That was another fun one. That was the first time we ever did a repeat guest. But I really felt it needed another one. Oh, God. Here we are. The Incorrigible Party. Do you believe that was October of last year? It was that long ago already? Oy. So getting 5 people on the show... Monumental.
It was bold. It was bold.
It was bold. It was work. It was interesting. But I tell you what, oh my God, I had so much fun. I totally felt like what's his name from Survivor, John Prost, right? I totally felt like I was sitting there like talking to 5 people. I was bouncing around questions. Like, it was so much fun talking with them. And there's a reason why they're at the top of the list. I don't do role-playing games. I hope to fix that in the near future. But it was so much it was so much fun doing it. And of course Leland's like, I have never ever been scared ever since. Like, it was obviously a very stressful moment and he got over it. What was funniest was, I think we had like John and Emily, no problem. And we had Bill. We had Bill and Elena, no problem. And then Leland is like on this other thing that just didn't work. And I don't know how long he was doing it. He's not hearing anybody, but he's still trying. And it was amazing. And we ended up fixing it. And the tech problems dissolved away into an awesome show where I only spoiled like 2 things. So
that was tremendous. That was one of a kind. Very cool conversation.
Yeah,
Got to hear from everyone.
I kind of felt like I was interviewing the Beatles, Dan, a little bit. Like, you know, kind of had to bounce around. You know, I kind of couldn't like, can't focus on Ringo because like that's the whole thing. And I couldn't focus on John because that wouldn't be right. So I had to go a little bit back and forth. Is that a good Liverpool
Exactly.
or not? All right. Sorry, John. So did you? So I know when we started this, John and Emily, did you actually record in the same room from the start for the show? Because I know Bill and Elena did, and I know that they have since separated in the show. and recording zones,
Not,
correct?
not separated.
Not separated, but like audio separated, right? So I have to wonder if like Shaft and they couldn't get along. All right. So then we moved on to we had Glory Hound on. So so there are a few guests who are kind of like Cher, where they only use their online name. Netters Plays and Glory Hound were two of them. Where I'm kind of like, what am I supposed to put in the name, like on the bottom? But they don't use their name, so you know, hashtag stalkers. But that was a lot of fun, and learning about her and Glory Hogg and how they're kind of, again, they do a lot of online Twitch and stuff like that. So that was a lot of fun to learn about. That was pretty cool. Oh, Ted Alspach. That's up there. That was a lot of fun. What did you think about that one, Dan?
It was a treat.
He was. He was. He
I was
was.
riff while you poured a drink there. Oh, sad days.
It's okay. We're good. Yeah, he was fun, but he was also. It was kind of hard to get him to kind of switch off the Stephen Bonacore, want to promote everything to kind of let's talk about this game design thing and kind of like that. That's a really fine line to have to walk, and that was, that was pretty cool. Oh look, Glenn's back after we dissed him for like half an hour straight. He's back. So
Good
then we
timing.
had Roy Kennedy. We already talked about him, and I think we're gonna finish on. We have two high notes. One is the Elizabeth Hargrave interview. So, if I'm being honest with you people, season three would not have happened if it was not for Liz. Like the three episodes that we will call season three, we're gonna go the way of we'll go the way of Serenity and Firefly with season three. But Elizabeth said yes, and she scheduled a date, and it was after I had anticipated starting in three, and I'm like, there's no way I'm giving up that interview because I really wanted that, and it was awesome. It really was. I think, it's right up there with the Rob Davio. Like, I loved everything she had to say. I loved what we were able to talk about and the issues we were able to broach, and it's kind of awesome.
I'm very sad to have missed it.
Yeah, and again, it's one of those ones where I'm like, it was. I don't want to say a nightmare to schedule, but it was difficult, and we had to get schedules to align. And then when they aligned, it's like I'm in Disney. I'm doing cool things like going on the Millennium Falcon and getting a lightsaber
Sorry
made
that happened.
and making all my kids walk around in princess outfits. Um, you know, Speaking of, is Princess Leia a princess now? Like, is she one of the options when you go to Magic Kingdom, or is that like that's not right? Oh, I
Yeah,
was trying.
it's an excellent point. It's right there in the name.
I know, and it's just like I thought that was the funniest thing. Like, as soon as Disney bought them, they're like, "Oh, now she's a princess," and I'm like, "That's awesome," but at the same time, I'm kind of like, that would be like see little kids walking around dressed as Leia would be kind of awesome. That'd be kind of cool.
I mean, that still happens. Believe me, I saw kids dressed as Leia.
Okay.
There was Star Wars costume action happening in spades in Edge of the Galaxy, Galaxy's Edge, the new Star Wars land. So have no fear. But you can't. I don't think you can go to Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique and get the Leia treat.
Yeah, and that's insane. Like the amount that people like will spend on their kids to like turn them into the princess to do the thing to do the thing. I'm like, oh my god, I can't. I couldn't have kids because they want all the toys I want. I'm like, no. If I could go in a place and they could like dress me as Han Solo, and then I get to walk around and I get to dress in that costume, like guys, like I think that's it. So Star Wars Edge is not going to be about what the kids can dress up. They're going to have that same thing, but they're going to do it for adults. You can walk around as a stormtrooper all day, give people attitude the whole time. I bet you, if Disney was smart, what do you think, Dave?
I tell you, oh, dude, you have no idea. So the way it worked out, um, and now I can be judged for my parenting is that I actually did Rise of the Resistance, which is the new Star Wars ride by myself. My family was not able to; they were doing other stuff at the time, so they were not part of that.
Which means
The
they
amount of
did not want to wait as long as Dan was willing to wait.
it was about the time you had to get up to make that all happen. There's a special queue for that, so you have to get up before dawn to execute that, and there was no one else in the family who was willing to join me. Um, that said, the willpower it took for me not to come away with Imperial officer gear. They have a dedicated shop. Like if you want to go buy Rebel Resistance stuff, there's shops for that. But if you want to get all your Stormtrooper and Imperial and First Order gear, that's its own store. And believe me, there was some sharp looking Imperial officer caps that it took a fight to walk out without them. I
Oh,
could definitely have dressed.
oh, that's impressive. I don't. Oh, I struggle with that. It's so hard because you want to have some fun. So
It helps to do that at the end of a week where you've spent a fortune on the children first, and you're keenly aware of that. It makes it a little easier to have fiscal discipline.
I'll have to take your word for it. I am the child in the relationship, so that's actually one of the harder things about right now living with COVID is that, I can't order something from Amazon and my wife not know about it. She's home all the time. It's not happening. So, like, trust me, honey, it was yeast for bread. I swear. I swear. It's like, it's fine.
It's a big box.
It's a big, it's 5 pounds. It's small. It's either coffee or yeast. It's fine. Awesome. So that's our run. I can't believe we did. I was expecting to have to glaze over a few, but I'm so happy that we actually got to talk about everybody. And yeah, it's kind of awesome. And
That's been beautiful.
so
We bored the crap out of everyone else, but we've enjoyed this walk down memory lane.
so so I think one of the key tenets is I would do this as long as I have fun. And you know what? I had fun all the way to the end. So I think that's the important takeaway. Um, so Patrick in chat seems to think that it's a lot like Harry Potter world, and yeah, well, they both learned something from each other on that one, right? Like you can go to Ollivander's and get a wand, or you can go to Star Wars and get a lightsaber. So you know,
A lot of good gear.
yeah, absolutely. So I I think it's time to wrap this up. I mean, 2 hours, 24 minutes. Longest thing you and I've ever done, Dan. And you're not feeling well, so I don't think we need to belabor the point. Thanks everybody who's been a part of this ride. This has been a ton of fun, and like we've said, I don't think this is done. I think maybe it comes back, but right now it just needs to take a pause or a break or an off. Like I think we need to reevaluate what we want to do and have fun, and maybe you'll see some fiasco games. Maybe you'll see some other stuff from us, but I don't suspect you've heard the last. I will
Well,
let it
thank
go.
everyone for coming out tonight. Thanks to everyone who's ever been a part of the show. The conversations have been precious to me, and thank you, Chris, for allowing me to be part of this and participate in everything, all the awesome conversations that we've had together.
Thanks for saying yes, Dan. It's been a ton of fun, and So I think with that, everybody, we're gonna I think we're gonna call it a night. I think we're gonna call it a show. So thank you at home. If you're listening to the Sim podcast, oh my God, the fact that you made it this far is kind of amazing. I am going to release it there just because I want there to be a bookend for the moment, and maybe you'll see something from us in the future. Uh, Maybe the timing's just off. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? And we'll see you around the cons, and enjoy your time together, and we'll talk to you soon. So thanks, Dan, so much for saying yes and being a part of the show. You helped us take the show to the next level. I think we needed to get into the bar, and I love what you added, and it's been awesome. And I love everybody for welcoming you. And man, they notice when you're not around. Like there are comments are like, "What? No, Dan?" Like, "Oh, whoa, calm down, guys. It's all right. It's all right." Dan and I get along just fine. We don't play that many games together. So it's been awesome. So thanks so much at home. You know what? I have Star Trek Picard waiting for me. It's the season finale. If you're not watching, CBS All Access is giving it away free right now. Do it. It's amazing. So it's a warp. Have a good night. And be sure to tip your bartender when you get able to go to the bar again, because those guys are struggling. So have fun, whatever you do, when you game all night. And I have to walk over the computer to turn off the stream, so you get to get a little bit more of me.
Awkward farewell.
So it's going to be a little awkward. In the video, it'll play a lot better. But in the meantime,
very subtle. No one notices. Be excellent to each other, folks.